Something had changed about Kurapika since you spent time with him together on Kukuru Mountain. There was a new rigidity about him, as if his will bore the earmarks of iron. Perhaps it had always been that way, and it had only now been brought to your attention through the tangible properties of Nen. But either way, you couldn't refute the new urgency proliferating his being with every loaded glance, every step he took. He no longer showed interest in touring the city with you, like he talked about back then. Not if a potential target wasn't involved. It was understandable in this situation, as time was a limited resource, so you convinced yourself he would return to his charming, agreeable self once this ordeal was over. You looked forward to that day. Do you have everything packed? Blonde locks bounced into view through your apartment door. Yep. You nodded, and he approached you before pulling something from his pocket. Good. Take this. He slipped a sleek black device into your hands. It's an untraceable phone. From here on out, it'll be safer to communicate with each other on these. He held up a second identical phone with 2 fingers. If you need to contact me, remember 16. 16, you repeated, but had no idea what that meant at this juncture. Kurapika had a car waiting for you out front, presumably one provided by his new employer. You slipped into the passenger side and felt lavish leather greet your bottom. In the comfortable silence of the drive, you pulled out your new phone and explored, knitting your brows together when you noticed a full contact list. A curious thing for a brand new phone, you deduced, then decided to scroll through them. There were no identifying factors, just numbers where the name slot should be. The number 16 caught your eye, and you assumed it to be Kurapika's new number. That's what he meant. You made sure to memorize the full sequence, just in case. We're here, he eventually announced, and you reflexively gawked like a peasant the instant you caught sight of the glittering gold hotel. You simply couldn't take your eyes off the sparkling entryway chandelier, the pristine stone floors, or the warm wood walls that radiated a rustic yet luxurious vibe when coupled with the stylish light fixtures. Whoa! Your doe-eyed awe didn't fade until after Kurapika handed the keys to the valet, checked in, and moved to take the bag from your hand. I can carry it, you offered, but Kurapika waved a flippant hand at you, a dismissal to your objection. What a gentleman! A smile graced your cheeks as the elevator doors opened. When it was just you and him alone, you spoke up. Why'd you pick such a high-end hotel? It's not even that close to the auction house. The boss's daughter is staying in a room on another floor. But you didn't hear that from me. Besides, you never know what kind of connections we might make in a place like this. The spotless steel doors revealed the club-level floor, velvet red carpet lining the hall. There was obviously more space between doors on this level than the first. Kurapika scanned the card key and paused to look back at you. Welcome to your new temporary abode. I hope it has everything you need to be comfortable. With that, the heavy cherry wood door swung open, as did your mouth immediately after. Wow! The extravagant room screamed indulgent, a quintessential playground for the affluent. To your right was a neatly made king-sized bed, while on your left sat a mini grand piano, between a fully stocked wet bar adjacent to the kitchen, and a writing desk that faced the crowning glory of the room. The view. The entire back wall was a floor-to-ceiling window that overlooked the flickering city. Simply put, it was stunning, and you had no doubts that Kurapika had to flex his financial muscles to procure it. Are they serious with this? You heard Kurapika exclaim, and you couldn't help but gush along with him. I know, it's amazing! Instead of the starstruck expression you anticipated, your friend looked flustered and displeased. What kind of penthouse suite only has one bed? His stomach dropped the instant he took notice of that. How humiliating. This egregious oversight makes it look like I had perfidious intentions. His hands balled into fists. Wait here. I'll address this. Wait! Kurapika! You faltered when his gaze locked onto you. Don't you think it's safer this way? Sleeping in proximity, I mean. You walked over to the window to hide the embarrassment creeping its way up your cheeks. It would certainly make an ambush a less viable option for the enemy. You tried tossing out something smart and analytical to justify it, though in truth, you just didn't like the idea of splitting off with him. You enjoyed the arrangement at your apartment, where you two would wake up and have breakfast together, or just do something as simple as trading witty banter through the bathroom door when the other person took too long. Your desire to keep him here was a selfish one, yes, but it was one that was strictly innocent in nature. You sure it doesn't bother you? No, why would it? If you think about it, it's not much different from us camping out together during the exam. His stiff posture relaxed at your answer. He was relieved that you approached this awkward situation with logic and didn't choose to throw around wrongful assumptions. Not to mention, you made a very persuasive argument, and he was feeling compelled to agree. From his own personal standpoint, he couldn't very well hold true to his promise of keeping you safe, if he didn't have a direct and watchful eye on you anyway. It's settled, then. If you're more comfortable with this arrangement, then I have no objections. You're the one helping me, after all. So it would be wrong of me to deny your peace of mind for the sake of social convention. And we're filthy crime lords now. You smirked and planted a hand on your hip. What exactly do we have to worry about? Our reputations? He chuckled lightly through his nose. I guess you're right. Well, take some time to get comfortable. He smoothed down the front of his clothes and gripped the door handle. Explore our options if you get the chance. Where are you going? I agreed to stop by and check on things before calling it a night. I'll be back shortly to discuss my findings with you. Oh, so you found something? Perhaps. With a swift whoosh of his tabard, he set off down the hall, and you were left alone in the picturesque room. It wasn't long before you were unpacked and starting to feel a bit hungry. Not wanting to stray too far and worry your high-strung companion of your whereabouts, you chose to pop down to the lobby for a snack. The room was buzzing with excitement, as it seemed a wine-tasting event was being held. Fortunately, this left the coffee and tea station uninhabited for your use. You had only finished steeping yourself a hot beverage when a streak of golden blonde caught your peripheral vision. Hey, Kurapika! You called out to him as he passed through the corridor, and his eyes widened in an uncharacteristic display of alarm. Seconds later, a group of people came into view, following on his heels. Oops! Despite his cautious expression, he gestured you over with a finger. Who's that? A man with tawny skin and ebony hair inquired as you closed the distance. She's my assistant, Kurapika punctuated, intent behind his voice. Oh? He's a sweetheart, isn't he? It took you a hot second, but you quickly picked up the act with the most darling smile you could manage in a tense situation like this. That's his polite way of saying I'm his secretary. You decided to improvise with what you had, extending the drink you just prepared to Kurapika. Here's the tea you asked me for, sir. Sorry it took so long. It's pretty busy in there. Thank you. He politely accepted the cup with both hands. Two of the men appeared to have taken your lie at face value. However, it was clear that the short, plump man was buying none of it. He raised a skeptical... Well, he didn't exactly have eyebrows, but he definitely wore an expression of disbelief. What does a bodyguard need a secretary for? A slender woman with feline features inquired, though you doubt she meant for her question to sound as rude as it did. You could have sworn you saw Kurapika's hand twitch in irritation. Most hunters have personal projects. I mostly keep him up to date on current affairs and keep track of outside threats. That sounded convincing enough, I think. So you're a hunter too? The dark-haired man seemed excited by the idea. You eyed Kurapika for an answer. Yes, she is. Ah, you should have known. Obviously he would want potential enemies to see you as a viable threat. Fascinating. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Squala. You extended your hand and he kissed it. I go by Baise. Basho, the gruff mustached man interjected. And I'm the music hunter, Melody. Oh, she's a girl! You almost did a double take when that small feminine voice carried itself to your ears. It's very nice to meet all of you. So you're a hunter too, Squala continued, having apparently forgotten to let go of your hand. I'm a manipulator. How about you? Oh? You blinked a few times. He definitely radiated the earnest personality of an enhancer, so that surprised you. What do you manipulate? Dogs. I love dogs! Really? Yeah! Melody smiled at your enthusiasm, and Kurapika cleared his throat impatiently. Squalla noticed. Hey, so Dalzone and Tocino are covering tonight, which means we're off the hook. I was going to see if the group was feeling up to a late dinner. He looked from them back to you. You're welcome to come too. I'd love to. It was then you were caught by a pair of gray eyes that were adamantly against the idea. But I can't, unfortunately. I have a lot of work to get done tonight, so I really should get back to it. Aw, that's a shame. I also must decline, Kurapika replied. I kind of figured as much. Basho chimed in, probably a shot at the blonde standoffish persona. But I hope to see you all again. You waved and retreated down the hallway. They each bid you a polite goodbye, before turning back in their pack formation. Crap, I didn't get the chance to eat anything. You realized on the elevator ride up. It was moments before Kurapika entered the room and rubbed his eyes in exhaustion. They seemed nice, you said to break the silence. I know it's in your nature to trust people, but if you could, for me, while you're here, pretend everyone around you is an enemy. That little one didn't seem to believe us. No, of course not. Melody can hear lies in people's heartbeats, so it's pointless to try and deceive her. That's decidedly inconvenient for us. I have to agree. But she hasn't given me any major reason to distrust her, so I'll reserve judgment for now. All we can do is be cautious. Right. I'll be more careful next time. So, what's the thing you wanted to discuss with me? Ah. He ran over to the desk and pulled out his sleek silver laptop. So I did some digging on one of the disappearance crimes. I was able to pull some files of communication between our lead and a possible accomplice. His fingers soared across the keys, and he slid the screen to face you. It's a bit cryptic, so perhaps the two of us can decode it together. You narrowed your eyes at the screen, as if that would somehow aid your brain power. Though no context was given, a message that kept appearing throughout their dispatch was this. He pointed at the highlighted text. Madam X. It could be a cipher, or maybe even an alias for someone. Or maybe it's a club, you stated plainly, and he stared at you in confusion. You must be mistaken. If it were a nightclub, it would have shown up on my searches. That's because it isn't a nightclub. It's a gentleman's club. You mean you really have information about this place? His face lit up in awe. Yeah. It's a place in the south central area of the city. We should go investigate right now, he exclaimed, getting a bit ahead of himself. It was then he caught your uncomfortable grimace, and faltered. Oh, right. You're not a gentleman. So you'd have to disguise yourself as a man to get in, right? You opened and closed your mouth like a fish a few times. Kurapika, do you know what a gentleman's club is? It seems self-explanatory enough. It's a place where gentlemen go, or presumably regular men who choose to put on airs. I'm assuming there's a secret etiquette code or something. I assure you there's no etiquette there. So it's a dress code or status thing? That's a bit of a problem. He tapped a finger against his lips. I suppose I could try to bribe the guards with nice cigars or something. Your smile continued to widen at his innocence, but you didn't want to embarrass him outright with the truth. It wasn't surprising if you thought about it. Someone who grew up in a rural area with very little technology would never have had the chance to experience these higher levels of degeneracy. It's a place where they host adult entertainment. You don't have to worry about not getting in, though you might not like what you see. You realize I'm a blacklist hunter now, right? I've seen my share of violence. It seemed that Kurapika was mentally picturing a type of underground battle arena, probably with lawless knife fights and excessive brutality, perhaps even pitting animals against one another. Those assumptions were still way off base, Have you ever seen a girl naked? His eyes widened and color shot up his face. Why would you ask such a thing? Because that's what it is, Kurapika. A gentleman's club is where they display naked ladies for profit. You can't be serious. He recoiled back in the desk chair, as if the words that came from your mouth had tainted the air in front of him. When you gave a nod to confirm your assertion, he lost control of his volume even more. Why would such a profane establishment operate under a classy name? It doesn't make any sense! He dropped his face in his hands, processing. A club for gentlemen. He shook his head slowly, as if his hopes to hobnob with other classy intellectuals had been completely dashed. If it makes you feel any better, I can scope it out instead. I think we should put this lead on hold temporarily. If you say so. You nodded, and it was silent for a while. You decided to change the subject, to abate the bad taste the last conversation left. So, anything noteworthy happen on duty? No, nothing eventful. I just guarded the boss's daughter while she wrote some fortunes. Fortunes? Did I not mention it? She's a specialist. And she has this ability where she can accurately predict people's futures. It's really quite fascinating to watch. That's incredible! I want to know mine! You'll have to pay a hefty sum of money to get one. I imagine her father used her to move up in the underground. To the above ground? Kurapika acknowledged your joke with a glance, but didn't respond to it. What's the condition for something like that? Well, she doesn't remember what she writes, and she can't write her own. Also, she needs a certain amount of info on her client, like name, date of birth, or blood type. An idea crashed into you with such force you felt the aftershocks in your spine. How long has she been doing that? Not sure. He shrugged. She's pretty young. 3 years? Kurapika put down his phone and looked at you, narrowing his eyes at the specific number you chose to ask about. I sense you know something that I don't. A smile crept up your lips. You could say that.